Reflections of a Simple American. Brought to you by Spirituality. Episode 1, Part 3, George Washington's Farewell Address. Greetings, citizen, and welcome back. In this episode of Reflections of a Simple American, I look forward to your company in listening to Washington turn his attention to the subject of constitutional government. This section, along with the previous section on union, make up the heart of this historic address. I hope you can join me on reflecting on Washington's words. Chapter 3, Constitutional Government.
To the efficacy and permanency of your union, a government for the whole is indispensable. No alliances, however strict, between the parts can be an adequate substitute. They must inevitably experience the infractions and interruptions which all alliances in all times have experienced. Sensible of this momentous truth, you have improved upon your first essay by the adoption of a constitution of government better calculated than your former for an intimate union and for the efficacious management of your common concerns. This government, the offspring of our own choice, uninfluenced and unawed, adopted upon full investigation and mature deliberation, completely free in its principles, in the distribution of its powers, uniting security with energy and containing within itself a provision for its own amendment, has a just claim to your confidence and your support. Respect for its authority, compliance with its laws, acquiescence in its measures, are duties enjoined by the fundamental maxims of true liberty. The basis of our political systems is the right of the people to make and to alter their constitutions of government. But the Constitution, which at any time exists, till changed by an explicit and authentic act of the whole people, is sacredly obligatory upon all. The very idea of the power and the right of the people to establish government presupposes the duty of every individual to obey the established government. All obstructions to the execution of the laws, all combinations and associations, under whatever plausible character, with the real design to direct, control, counteract, or awe the regular deliberation and action of the constituted authorities, are destructive of this fundamental principle and of fatal tendency. They serve to organize faction, to give it an artificial and extraordinary force, to put in the place of the delegated will of the nation the will of a party, often a small but artful and enterprising minority of the community, and according to the alternate triumphs of different parties, to make the public administration the mirror of the ill-concerted and incongruous projects of faction, rather than the organ of consistent and wholesome plans, digested by common councils and modified by mutual interests. However combinations or associations of the above description may now and then answer popular ends, they are likely, in the course of time and things, to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. Towards the preservation of your government and the permanency of your present happy state, it is requisite not only that you steadily discountenance irregular oppositions to its acknowledged authority, but also that you resist with care the spirit of innovation upon its principles, however specious the pretexts. One method of assault may be to effect, in the forms of the Constitution, alterations which will impair the energy of the system, and thus to undermine what cannot be directly overthrown. In all the changes to which you may be invited, remember that time and habit are at least as necessary to fix the true character of governments as of other human institutions. That experience is the surest standard by which to test the real tendency of the existing constitution of a country. That facility in changes, upon the credit of mere hypothesis and opinion, exposes to perpetual change from the endless variety of hypothesis and opinion. And remember especially that, for the efficient management of our common interests in a country so extensive as ours, a government of as much vigor as is consistent with the perfect security of liberty is indispensable. Liberty itself will find in such a government, with powers properly distributed and adjusted, its surest guardian. It is, indeed, little else than a name, where the government is too feeble to withstand the enterprises of faction, to confine each member of the society within the limits prescribed by the laws, and to maintain all in the secure and tranquil enjoyment of the rights of person and property.
Interpretation and reflection.
Washington begins this next chapter with a bridging section from the subject of union, mentioning that for it to be long-lasting and to work as intended, a government for the whole is indispensable. He speaks on alliances and how they simply don't give us the long-standing and uninterrupted strength that our union provides. In context, he's speaking more of an alliance between smaller confederacies, not foreign alliances. Next, he completes the transition by directly addressing the adoption of the Constitution. We, as a country, have all made a choice to institute the Constitution, and its legitimacy is built upon that choice. I like how he refers to this as, quote, the offspring of our own choice, end quote, and then begins to speak on its creation. Begin quote, uninfluenced and unawed, adopted upon full investigation and mature deliberation, completely free in its principles, end quote. To me, this is a reminder that the framers took great measure in painstakingly designing our Constitution. Many avenues were carefully explored, and many passionate yet productive discussions were held as they argued and agreed on what form this mighty document should take. He describes within it some important principles, such as the distribution of powers, and that within the Constitution are rules formed which enable us to legally change it within the proper channels. Of this Constitution, we should respect its authority and follow its laws, which is our duty as liberty-loving citizens. He reasserts that we as the people have the right to change the Constitution through, begin quote, an explicit and authentic act of the whole people, end quote. Washington then finishes the paragraph by stating that the idea that the power and right of the people to establish government goes hand in hand with our duty to obey the current government. In this next paragraph, Washington begins to speak about the dangers of organized efforts that seek to disrupt the function of how the elected government under the Constitution is operating. He warns of various pressures these factions could use, which are destructive to the constitutional process, through bypassing it in favor of usurping the will of the people, in favor of the small minority that has gained influence, which then seeks to change the public administration into a mirror of that faction instead of a government of the whole, and instead of serving all, serving their own mutual interests. In paragraph 18, Washington goes on to say, these organizations may serve a purpose during emergencies, but on a long enough timeline, cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will seek to gain power within these factions, to remove it from the people, to take control of the government, and then destroy the constitutional process that enabled them to gain power. Washington wraps up this section of the address by reaffirming the need to steadily discourage opposition to its acknowledged authority, but also warns of the spirit of innovation upon its principles. He speaks of one form of assault upon our Constitution being new ideas that don't necessarily destroy our system, but instead seek to make frequent alterations that essentially bog down the functional system of government. He isn't speaking of all changes to the Constitution, and reiterates that legal changes within the system, as intended, are fine, and he gives us an invitation to, begin quote, Remember that time and habit are at least necessary to fix the true character of governments." End quote. And once again circles back to the notion that experience is the surest way to, begin quote, "test the real tendency of the existing constitution of a country." End quote. He warns of changes being made due to, begin quote, "mere hypothesis and opinion," end quote, as there will always be new and different opinions seeking changes. To me, this paragraph is a warning about changing the Constitution too quickly, and that we shouldn't seek constant change based on loud voices of the current day, as like the wind, voices from different directions will often blow hard and fast, and if we succumb to listening to them and hastily changing, we will be as a leaf, blowing this way and that way as whatever wind of the time dictates. If, however, we yield to experience in our thoughts of change, and slowly and carefully change over time and with thoughtful consideration, we will be fulfilling the ideals set up by the founders as the preferred method of changing our government, as a clear reflection of the people that consist of our United States. Washington then continues on speaking of liberty and how it will naturally find itself within a government consisting of balanced powers, and describes such a government as a guardian of liberty. He warns that if a government becomes too feeble to withstand the enterprises of faction, liberty loses its true meaning and becomes little more than just a name. If we allow our government to be weakened, the preservation of the rule of law and liberty will be under threat.
Thanks for stopping by. If you haven't seen episodes 1 or 2 yet, you can find them on the Spirituality YouTube channel. Episode 4 is planned to release on Saturday, July 25th, so stay tuned if you'd like to continue to study Washington's farewell address together.